Mason from MasonWorks Marketing here on Conscious Business Zone with my friend Pamela Gerali. Hi, Pamela.
Hi, Kathy. So happy to be here with you.
Oh, yes, we are so excited for you to learn about how Pamela can help you and her new book and all about this amazing process that you can go through that'll ease so much of the stress that everybody's feeling right now. So Pamela, you you downloaded this this, this amazing path to essence called The Blueprint for the Human Spirit. Could you start with explaining about that for us, please?
Oh, absolutely. I'd love to share. It is my passion and my purpose to share the blueprint for the human spirit. So it seems that I was an unlikely candidate to receive this because I grew up in this very rigid, fundamental religious home and church, and everything was negative, and I just felt like I could never measure up. And it was so bad. I felt like I lived with what I call the unholy trinity of guilt, shame, and fear. And I think many of us still have some of that within us. We still feel those things from our past, whether it was a severe limiting religious experience or a home life, or whether teachers told you what you could and couldn't do, or whatever. There's so many reasons why we all have struggled. And I think that the blueprint has certainly been an answer for me because it guided me. In fact, I left that religious teachings behind, went on to college, became a nurse, got a master's in public health, worked for many nonprofit health organizations, including the American Cancer Society and Prevent Blindness America. And I truly had a wonderful career with progressive leadership experiences, but something was still missing. And one organization I worked for allowed me to go to the Center for Creative Leadership, where I had a profound shift. It was almost like a conversion experience because I saw the light, and we did visioning and journaling, worked with change partners. We had guidance from social workers, artists. I mean, it was fabulous. And when I returned to my job as the program director for Prevent Blindness America, I realized that my job was no longer compatible with my new vision. So I quit my job and I lost everything. I lost my income. I lost my sense of community. I lost a sense of purpose. But I knew it was right for me to let that go. And I became a spiritual junkie. I started reading everything, trying everybody's practices. I went to every holistic workshop within 100 miles. And I mean, I just was a consummate seeker. And I think many people relate to that. Many of you that are with us today know what that feels like. You keep searching and searching for answers out there. Well, what I discovered eventually was that the answers were within me. And that is the beginning of how the blueprint for the human spirit came to be. It came as divine downloads in the early mornings. And I would get up after an hour and a half of laying there with all this information flowing in, and I would go to my office, sit at my computer, and enter the information that I received. And I draw pictures because it came with sacred geometry. And I had no idea what that was, but it just evolved and evolved from a simple mind, body, spirit triangle into this beautiful matrix that I call the blueprint for the human spirit. And it is evolved in harmony with my personal growth. So every time something came to me and I integrated it into my way of being, then more information would flow in. So for 6 months, I received information 3 or 4 days a week And then it came into this beautiful form that has meant so much to me. It has helped, it's guided my awakening. And because of that, I'm committed to sharing it. I know it can help so many other people because it is profound. It is also relevant to students from all walks of life and people from all faiths because it's compatible with ancient teachings and new science and Eastern philosophy and Western psychology. And I don't know of any other teaching that does that.
Well, I think that what's amazing about everything you do, it's radically honest.
Yes.
And that, I mean, people talk about that, but we've been through this whole period of shutdown and fear for our lives, if you want
Yes.
to call it that, and huge, huge changes. I mean, you were able to pick the time to jump off and get your out of your business, but a lot of people lost their jobs, and
Right.
they're kind of looking around of, do they trust what they're getting in here? And you did. You somehow you had that, and I call it radical honesty because I'm so impressed with the Pamela, that the way that you there's no baggage to the conversation. It just is. And I think the shame and blame and all of that that we've been, our culture created for us to don't tell the family story. Or, I mean, think about that though. I mean, all these people that they're, first of all, they're in together, they're more together than they have been probably their whole lives with family.
Yes.
So how did you get that radical honesty part?
It didn't come easy. Partially because of my upbringing. I was taught to fear God and everything else. And anything that wasn't from the King James Version of the Bible was believed to be not exactly kosher.
Mhm.
And so I questioned and I was concerned that I would be led down some wrong path by a charlatan. And, so I was very hesitant. And eventually, when this information was flowing in, I felt, oh my goodness, I really need somebody who I believe and trust, like a Wayne Dyer type guy, man or woman, to tell me that what I received was true and right and good. And then I decided, okay, I know how to manifest things. I wrote in my journal, a guru is coming into my life now. And immediately this voice from like way back here said, well, what am I, chopped liver? And it was like, oh my goodness, I don't need a guru because I have the best inner teacher. It just flows through me. And it's like my higher self telling me exactly what I need to know and how it all fits together. And I do know that in this lifetime, I am here now to put all those pieces together. And I think that is what is missing, because so many of us have read so many books and there's little bits and pieces of wisdom and guidance in everything, but it doesn't quite fit together. We all have our little niche, but the blueprint for the human spirit just pulls it all together in such elegance and such beauty and with such wisdom that it made such a huge difference.
The other thing I love about the blueprint for the human spirit is when you use it, you don't feel like you're in competition, or I think so many things you use, you're comparing yourself to somebody else's journey, or you're looking at it and I'm not good at it's another way to say I'm not good enough at something. And the process is more just like um, stepping stones almost, where where you perspectives,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yes. And I think every time we learn something new, every time we're exposed to a new idea, we can feel in our being whether it's right or not, if we allow that to happen and if we trust that. And then one step at a time, we are guided and we are led. And certainly the blueprint was my teacher, my choreographer, so to speak. And it may or may not be everybody else's, but I do think and believe and trust the fact that it has such huge potential for making a difference. Right now, we struggle. All of humanity is faced with so much victimhood, in particular, and entitlement, and so many other issues that are dragging us down. And I believe that with guidance from a tool like this and through spiritual blueprinting, where we can really open our minds and hearts to truth and guidance, that it's possible to make a shift. I have seen how the blueprint reveals exactly how we shift out of victimhood, where things happen to us beyond our control, to the point where we take charge, with ego effort and try to make our difference and make things happen, sometimes successfully and sometimes not, onward to where we become the vessel through which information flows, and how we work in harmony with spirit, then eventually to express essence and to bring forth and be that which we are.
Right.
I've seen how that works, and it's perfect and it's beautiful and it's easy and fun.
Isn't it interesting? I mean, we labor and read hundreds of books, and then we quote somebody else, but until we embody the truth of who we are, yes. and maybe I still think people need validation of that truth. I think a lot of times you get information and you can't, it's too out of context.
Right.
Or you let go of your old program and there's a void.
Nothing. Yes. And that's what happened to me. It was like I went from this extreme on one side, this religious abusive relation, part of my life, to where I had nothing except my career and my mind. And then, of course, shifting out of that mental area is something else that we have to do. Because if we are in our minds only and we are so focused on information, it
Right.
will never make a difference.
Right.
And something very profound happened to me that made a shift in my life, that moved me from this intense mental approach to life, this logical, rational mind, and based on all my science training. And I had the blueprint, and it was a very interesting intellectual exercise. But one day I was meditating on my lanai in the rain, and very quickly, and I will say that I'm not good at meditating because I'm hyper, but I was meditating, and very quickly I went off into a very deep, deep state. And I experienced 15 past lives. I experienced a traumatic event or a very intense event in the lives of 15 different people who were children, men, women, older people from all walks of life, from ancient Mayan times to more early 1900s. And it was so powerful that I ran into my office and I wrote down a couple lines about each one and realized at that point there were 15. Well, it just so happens there were 15 primary boxes in the blueprint matrix at that time. That was not an accident. That did not happen by chance, but it was to help me integrate and personalize exactly what each cell in that matrix meant. And for each person that I experienced, there was a shift in consciousness that they reflected. And every single one of them built on the others so that it was in perfect harmony. And then a few days later, I had another experience. I shared this with a friend who was a therapist, and she says, well, would you like to do a regression? And I'm like, are you kidding? Because how am I ever going to really figure out what all these people have to say? And then I thought, oh, why not?
Yeah.
And so she led me back in time until I was a child at the feet of Jesus when he said, let the children come to me, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. And in that moment, I knew exactly what that meant. That is perfect essence. And it was the reflection of the one level, the final level in the blueprint, the eternal realm of being. And it also brought me full circle back to my roots, where I understood those teachings in a whole new light. And what a gift is that? Right. So from that moment on, I'm no longer just a brainiac, but it comes from my heart and soul. It's a part of me. And it is why I'm so passionate about this, about my work, about sharing the blueprint for the human spirit.
Well, when you do a process called spiritual blueprinting, could you give us a little idea of what that's like too? Because you aren't necessarily using the blueprint. You're using more intuitive capacity than you are using the matrix, right?
Right. As the blueprint was evolving, I realized that I was intuitive. Now, for a brainiac with science training, that is very hard to take, hard to understand, and unusual. But all of this was coming forth. It was opening me up in a whole new way. And it began as I prayed for people as I was lying in bed in the middle of the night, and I would find myself moving energy around. And then people would say they had an issue, and I'd say, oh, you want me to pray for you? Sure. And then I'd get all this imagery, and my body would go into motion.
Okay.
So I would act out. My husband calls me a drama queen. I would act out, become like a mirror, and show them through positions and motions and imagery exactly what their higher self wanted them to know in this moment to help them make a shift in consciousness.
Cool.
And so I got to the point where I could speak during these sessions. I close my eyes usually because it helps keep the hyperactive part of me down a little. But I would close my eyes and affirm that we are open, ready, and willing to receive whatever guidance comes through. And I speak in first person. So you know that we are one. And my healing is your healing, is the healing of the world. And so when I do sessions with people, they are so perfect because the imagery that I receive is so relevant to them and their interests and their lives and whatever. I was playing a piano, an air piano on someone who was a concert pianist, and I had no idea. And I just things like that happen all the time. So I have offered what I call spiritual blueprinting because it is always relevant to the blueprint. But it is holistic. It could be about the physical, mental, emotional, intuitive, or spiritual realms of being. And it could be about the past, present, or even future. You never know what is going to come forth. So it is very powerful and life-changing.
Right. Well, I have to say, just working with you on Zoom, when we're working on things, the energy is profound. So, and I already usually I can handle a lot. So it's very profound. Well, I want to go back to asking a quick question because I was just at a metaphysical and physical fair all weekend, and there was a lot of people doing, past lives readings, and they say that all is happening all at one time. Um, do you find that past life only comes up when there's an issue in this timeline that it's carrying over, it's affecting, or how does that work?
Well, my perspective on it is that, for instance, all the people that I encountered on that one day reflected an aspect of my life in addition to my life in the present, in addition to being an aspect of the blueprint matrix. And each one reflected a shift in consciousness that I had made or needed to make or needed to be reinforced in some way,
Okay.
so that to me, it doesn't matter if it's past or present, it's an awareness of something profound that we need to tap into. And I believe that, I mean, we're all recycled, so who knows whose cells we have within us. But I do know that that these experiences that I had were so deeply, I was so emotional about it, and they touched me so deeply that it wasn't just like reading a story about somebody.
Right.
So, yeah.
Well, I'm curious because it seems like there's a lot of people that spend a lot of time working on their past, and want, there's a fascination. Was I Cleopatra or
Always a queen, Well, I mean, in on one of my
funny?
people, I mean, one was this Jabba the Hutt who just didn't fulfill his purpose and ate himself out of house and home in ancient Rome. I mean, he was this horrid man. And there was one who was, I mean, there was like a woman at the well, the story of Jesus with woman at the well. She was a prostitute way back when, who gave a piece of her soul away every time she, had to be with somebody for just to survive. And I mean, I can't tell you all of the experiences, but one in particular was very cool because I've run into him a few times in meditations, and his name was Tanate, and he was a shaman from about 1,000 years ago. And he took me on a spiritual journey up a mountain. And when we got so far up to the mountain, we became one. And I realized at that point that all of our spirit guides and higher guidance is a part of us,
Right.
But we view it as being separate. And that's something we need to change our perspective about, because I believe that we're all one. We're all part. We have aspects of everything within us. But this gentleman also gave me his medicine bag in a meditation. Very powerful.
Very cool. So the reason I was asking is that I think that we're going through these huge changes now.
Yes.
There's a resistance to change. There's a fear of change. They say selling your house and public speaking are some of the two. They're more fearful than divorce. But anyway, so we're being thrust into a new era, a new way of thinking. And I believe that people are going to become more and more empathic with all this energy coming into the earth, that the first step is going to be being aware of other energies and emotions that are in the field that they're not sure are theirs or else. That's why I was asking, because I think what you've created is a way to understand and work with all this new energy coming in, so that it's not you can embody it, but it's not frightening.
Right. And, one thing I want to mention before I forget is that I think we can get sidetracked on searching for things like that instead of focusing on the present, because it's all about the present. It's about this moment. It's about how we show up every day. And I believe we are here as the hands and the heart and the voice of God. And when we show up as the presence of God and allow love to guide us, that's it. That is why we are here, to make a difference, to be the love that we are. And so I think I discourage people to some degree not to avoid getting caught up in things that are fun and engaging and interesting and whatever. But it's all about right now. And that's also why my primary focus is to guide individuals through the process of becoming more self-aware, discovering who they are. And that one level of the blueprint focuses on the personal. And if we don't know who we are, essence expressing, then we can never fulfill our higher purpose in the social realm. We'll never be able to live consciously and compassionately as one in the global realm, and we'll never tap into those divine inheritance and use all of our superpowers to their highest potential. So my focus, instead of trying to change what's going on out there, is to focus on in here. Because when we change, everything changes. Everybody around us changes. The energy shifts. And one person can uplift humanity in many, many ways, can do far more than if we go out there and consciously try to change what's happening in society. We need to change ourselves first.
Well, that's the journey, and that's the possibility that's more available now than ever before, because I think that the energy in the earth, around the earth, allows supports it. I mean, when you were doing this 10 years ago, you were looking around going, there's only a handful of people who are sort of understanding what I'm understanding. And did they get the same memo I got? But now you're seeing, and I don't know if it's just because of the wonderful technology that we have,
Yes,
but a lot of us, I had an awakening thing over 16, 17 years ago. So I get it. I mean, and I didn't really, what's beautiful about your work is you have words for everything. I still am trying to find words, but it's the state of being where you're truly, it's self-love embodied. It really is. And we weren't taught how to love ourselves.
No, we were taught to be so critical of ourselves because we were criticized, we were limited, we were squelched in so many different ways. And so I think when we realize that being created in the image and likeness of God means that we are godlings, and that, I was taught about original sin. Well, nobody ever told me about original divinity. I mean, that is what was missing.
Right.
And I think that is far more important than, feeling limited or that in the ways that we have been. So I think if we embrace our inner divinity and know that it is there and a part of us, that everything will shift.
Yes. Well, embracing it is the thing that I think that you do so well, and you're such a great guide about, because I mean, again, you can read a book like Matt Kahn has Whatever Happens, Love That. And you read it and you go, yeah, this feels good. But it's like, how do I love that? I mean, there really is. I mean, he might give you ideas, but it's like Rumi or some of the great poetry. You feel it and then
Yes.
go that, but it's an external source. How do you be that? And your
Yes.
work actually allows you to embody it.
Yes. I had an experience that's going to lead to us talking about my book.
Good.
um, a, a few years ago, I had like bronchitis, and it turned into viral thyroiditis.
Wow.
So I was in pretty bad shape, and I had to take medication to protect my heart and whatever. And so I was flatlined for about 6 months. I was down. And that's very hard for me because I'm your typical hyperactive. In fact, when I was a kid, my mother said she always knew where I was because she would look across the field to where all us kids were playing, and I was the one jumping up and down. So lying down for an extended period of time was difficult, but the universe did me a favor. I had been involved in about 6 different organizations. I was a professional volunteer doing everything for everybody and not working on the blueprint. And I was almost overexpending my energy to the point where I was almost exhausted. So, I was down. So I rested, ate a lot of cookies. And when I felt better, I wrote an affirmation on my phone, actually, and said, okay, I am open, ready, and willing to work on whatever you would like me to work on. And I got up the next morning knowing exactly what I was supposed to do. I was supposed to get up an hour early every day for 40 days and write confessions.
Yeah. Oh,
Now, I've been a spiritual teacher and on the spiritual path for 20 years or more. And that was kind of a low blow. It's like, how much do I have to confess? I mean, why should,
yeah.
So yeah, what?
Oh, man.
So I set my alarm, and the next morning I got up and I went to my office, not knowing what to do or how to do it or whatever. I lit a candle and I sat down and I closed my eyes and just sat in the silence for about 3 minutes. And a word came to me: discipline.
Yeah.
And I had this visceral reaction. Oh my God, I hate the idea of anybody telling me what to do or what not to do. Oh my gosh, there's my first confession, So I grabbed my journal, I wrote my confession, and then out flowed from me my experience with discipline. I was disciplined harshly because that was old school and based on the church teachings and things like that. And of course, when you are disciplined like that, then you internalize that. So I became my own worst critic. Yeah. And I was very hard on myself. But discipline can become self-discipline. And when we have self-discipline, we can choose to say no to certain things and yes to things that serve us better. Right. And so discipline is transformed into direction. Right. And so I wrote that. And at the end, I wrote an affirmation about how I was in the flow and one with the universe and whatever. The next day, I sat in the silence, scattered. Oh my gosh. And I'm like, I have such a hard time staying focused because I'm creative and I see the possibilities and I go off in this direction and then another direction. And so I wrote about that. And every day for 40 days, I purged my soul. And, during this COVID time, we've purged our homes because we've realized we have a lot of junk that we don't need and want. And when we have to spend a lot of time here, it starts closing in on us. But I had this deep soul cleanse. And after a day or two, I started sharing my daily writings with some friends. And they says, oh my gosh, you told us that you were so radically honest that it gave me permission to do the same thing. All these things about my life came up. You have to share this. You have to let this out into the universe. And so I am, and I have, and it's called The Dance of Ego and Essence, Confessions of a Divine Diva. We're all divine divas or divos. And there is a dance between ego and essence because ego is part of our personality and part of us. It may be the part shadow side, but it's served its purpose. And then we have essence that is pure light, and we express our essence through our humanity and through our personality. And so instead of suppressing or totally eliminating ego, I believe we need to embrace it and integrate it because it's a part of us.
Of course.
So
there's no mistake that this was divinely constructed. And this whole world game was divinely informed, and we misinterpreted parts of it. And so that's what, when I look at this book, The Dance of Ego and Essence, Confessions of a Divine Diva, I can't tell you how, number one, your honesty is amazing. But number two, it forces you to really look at how am I showing up? How am I interpreting and it's all okay. I have to say, by reading this many times, I feel like it has made me aware of my programming and get to choose whether or not I like to keep it or not. Right, because so much of it's heavy. I mean, it really is, like you said, discipline to direction. Discipline, when it's just being courteous, or we were taught to be courteous around elders, all of the social things, but maybe some of that is a little off too, right? I mean, you start to looking at, well, what do I believe in? What was I taught? And is that
exactly
what that people, when they started 40 different issues, 40 days.
40 days. And then a couple more, there was an appendix or an epilogue and whatever. But yes, and I believe that all these issues are universal. We all face them in some level and in some degree. But the one interesting thing that I realized after I had written this, well, first of all, it was so powerful that I felt so free. The more I let this stuff go, the more I expressed it instead of stuffing it down. I mean, there were painful things that came up and funny things and crazy stuff, And but the more I had kept it down, it was like ballast, So there becomes a time where you just have to let it all go, and one day at a time. All this. I was flying. I was euphoric, about halfway through this, and because I had released so much, or I had named and so much, so that I could let it go.
Right.
And when we do that, I believe, that's being transparent and radically honest. It clears our soul and allows us, the light to shine. It's almost keeping the darkness in. And so now I feel like this is something that everybody can benefit from.
Right.
And I know that by being so brutally honest about my life experiences, I hesitated to share some of them. I mean, I wrote about something I never, ever told a soul about. The first time I was sexually abused, I was 6 in first grade. And one of my classmates was a boy who was a year older or more, because I was one of the youngest in my class. So he was probably, if I was 5 or 6 in first grade, he was, 6 or 7. And I was getting a drink of water at the fountain between the boys' room and the girls' room. And he opened the door and exposed himself to me. And I was mortified. I mean, I was going to church at that time. My mother and dad started going to this very fundamental church when I was about 3. And so I had heard all these negative things. So I said to him, "You're a devil." That was the worst word I knew. And he says, "Oh, but you're an angel."
Oh.
But I mean, that
Yeah.
pained me. I felt guilty that I had done something wrong. I mean, and that is what victimhood and shame and fear and guilt does to you. My husband and I joke around now, if he does something, I says, "Oh, you're a devil." And he says, "Yeah, but you're an angel."
Well, see, that's what I'm saying when you bring that in, because I think that's what I noticed at the very beginning of COVID, because I used to have an office offsite and I had to move it home. And I'm here and I started to do something and I heard myself say, "Oh, that was really stupid." And I stopped and thought, did I just call myself stupid? But I didn't even know. I think when you have this pause,
Yes.
and we go through 40 days with you in this wonderful book, there's so many opportunities to let go that heavy, dark energy.
Yes.
And like you explained before, we're supposed to live in joy. This was
Yes.
to be fun.
Yes. And when we can release all of this and be so free to be all that we are and not have anything, it's peeling another layer of the onion, so to speak, but we're so free to just be authentic. And that is what this book is. And there's a companion journal also that's available on my website that I think if you're serious about going through this process, I would strongly encourage you to download this, because it's how to embrace your divine inner diva. But in the process, it's not just about, clearing your soul and writing. There's a meditation that goes with it, and you write your own affirmation, and then a playful dancey type activity that makes it fun and brings it to life, and that is what makes the difference. In an exercise like this, you want to be able to experience it in your full self, not just read, not just hear somebody else's story, but you need to experience it deeply in order to make a shift.
Well, I have always said your work is really for those that have been seeking, and I think there's a whole new generation of people that are going to start seeking now. And Wayne Dyer's gone, but his work's still around, and there's so many wonderful things to read. But if they really want to start the journey in a way that it'll clear, just reading the book will start clearing them. It's because that you can't help but read your candid conversation and then not look at your own life. You can't help it.
Yes.
And so it's for those of the people that are seeking, this is a way to help find yourself, find out what is it that you have in your consciousness that may not serve you anymore, and get help releasing it.
Exactly. So My suggestion is to read one chapter a day and actually do the companion exercise, because and you don't have to do it every day for 40 days, although it'd make a perfect Lent type activity. But, you could do a few, like 5 a week, take the weekend off kind of a thing, but make a commitment, because it is a powerful experience. And I know for a fact that what I discovered in doing this was exactly the impact that the blueprint had on me.
Wow.
Each of these issues or ideas or thoughts or limitations that I had written about, and the opposite, in having realized the essence of my being, each one of them is part of the blueprint. They're in there. And I believe that it just created such a impact on me that revealed the magnitude of the shift that occurred in my life over, from the time I started seeking. And that was in 1995. So it's been a while. Sometimes it takes a long time for us to be able to put into words things, and to share in a way that the universe and we are ready for.
Well, the other thing that I want to let everyone know about your work is that it's fun. So this isn't, when you go to some shamans and some healers, like there was a bunch of people at this big event, a huge event, I don't know, 300 booths or more. It was big. Anyway, when you go to someone who's a shaman, they're taught to like tough love. It's like,
soul retrieval is tough business.
but it somehow it doesn't. Your work, it has a joy to it, has a lot of laughter and giggles, and not pointing fingers, but embracing the release, and then the joy of the coming home to who you are. And that's what I love about it. It's so different than these other because once you realize that you as a soul created this whole journey with all the ups and downs, and then you go, how did I do this? That's a different conversation. It's a hard conversation.
Yes. And I struggled so much on my spiritual journey because I was so earnest, and I wanted to do everything right.
Yeah.
I struggled with perfectionism, and that was part of that growing up. In fact, day 8 is about from perfectionism to perfectly imperfect.
Perfect. Yeah.
And how I struggled with that, because I wanted to do everything right. I had to, and now I know that we show up every day and do our best. And sometimes we do better than others, but we do our best, and that's perfectly fine. I wrote in here once, and I'm going to read just a little tiny bit of this because I think it's funny. I worked hard to please everyone and perform my chores to the best of my ability. However, I never felt complimented or encouraged. For years, my sisters and I mowed the lawns of our grandparents, great uncle, elderly neighbors in the parsonage. Never once in all these years did we ever receive a thank you or a quarter for our efforts. So, that taught me that I wasn't valuable. Right. That's a whole other issue. But we did what we were told when we were told and did not complain. When Dad tried to teach me something and I asked for feedback, he would say, "Get in there." And instead of realizing I had performed the job well enough, or that I had learned what I needed, I thought I was being told, not good enough.
Right.
And that made me try even harder. Now, sometimes that helps because I became so driven and tried so hard to learn and grow and do everything optimally that, it made a difference. Of course, I was reminded of this because I sent out a constant contact uh, newsletter, and I had 2 different days or 2 different times, and then I had an issue with the link. And so, I'm perfectly imperfect, it's okay. And in the past, that would have driven me crazy. I would have been so,
Yeah.
I would have criticized myself, been so hard on myself. But it just is, and we just do our best in every moment, and that's it.
I think that's a big part of the lesson right now, is that everything is in divine order. And we, from our perspective here, when we meditate, we might get a bird's eye view of what divine order is. But in our regular 3D life, we don't have access to all the information, and we don't know what is next in line that this was perfection for. So if everything is for our highest good, and we trust, that's I think a big part of it is learning how to trust that all of this is part of the game, and that we're safe in the game.
Mhm.
That's, I think that's what a lot of people are seeking, is that kind of information.
Yes. And trust is the first lesson in the blueprint. Hope, and that's more related to the physical realm of being. Hope is another lesson, and that's more in the mental, because if we think and believe, we can hope. Love, of course, opening our hearts in the emotional. And in the intuitive, it is all about faith, knowing without judging. And in the spiritual realm, of course, we transcend lessons and just live in grace. But it's such a beautiful a way of evolving through those lessons in life. But trust, that's where it all begins. And
Right.
in the physical, if we're not able to survive, if we don't have everything we need to live, to eat well, to roof over our heads, clothing, survival becomes, the first thing. But fortunately, most of us haven't had to deal with that. But there are many people, especially today, with the situations going on in our world, that struggle.
Right.
And survival is a huge issue.
Well, and the thing is that at a metaphysical, at a quantum metaphysical viewpoint, the more that people work on themselves, the more that it expands consciousness for everybody.
Everyone, yes.
So that faith is really faith that there is a divine plan, and somehow you volunteered to be here for it. That's pretty thinking.
Yes. Dr. David Hawkins said that the greatest gift that we can give to the world is to raise our awareness, raise our consciousness, and the gift comes back to us. And so it's kind of a selfish thing, but it's a good thing. And I do believe that we make a difference by becoming aware, by tapping into and knowing the true essence of our being, and then expressing that, showing up every day as love, as the hands and the heart and the voice of God.
Right, right. The other thing that I wanted everyone to know about is that your work allows people to drop the story, because the story that we have given ourselves as the reason why for this, that, and the next thing is really like a baggage. And what happens as you go through the blueprint, you and through your new book is wonderful for that. You get to look at and evaluate, do I still believe that? And can I flip it to essence? and go from the ego view, well, the frightened protection view to the divine view, basically.
Exactly. Yes. And I know that we all are divine. Some of us haven't got to the point where we can express that, that we're not comfortable expressing it, or we haven't embraced that as part of us.
Right.
And I think that since so many people are still trapped in victimhood, where things happen to them beyond their control, they can never get to the part of themselves to embrace the truth of themselves and the divinity within if they hang on to victimhood.
Right.
The past is the past. And at some point, we only can raise our awareness if we shift beyond that ballast that holds us back.
Exactly. And that they always said in hindsight it all makes sense, and it does. But at the time, it's a crushing blow, or it's a change. A lot of people have been sad about what they thought their life was going to be, and they have to change right now.
Yes, of course. Things have changed dramatically.
Right.
And I think that that's one of the benefits of the blueprint. It can bring us to a state of greater peace, to a sense of higher knowing, to helping us release all this old garbage or beliefs. And knowing that all we have to do is show up every day, even if it's virtually, as love, as the presence of God, and make a difference that we are here to do. So it doesn't matter how we do it. We just do it. And it doesn't matter where we work or who we interact with or what we do. Just show up.
Right.
That's love in essence.
And I think this new book, the dance of ego and essence, Confessions of a Divine Diva, is a wonderful. It's entertaining. It really is. And so as you're reading it, it's not like "woe is me" or "I'm so terrible." You read it, and you're almost like you're watching
a voyeur.
Well, that's why sitcoms are so good. So, people like that. I live vicariously through your life, but then I got so much out of it. But it wasn't like, oh, I got to read the next chapter.
Right.
It was more like, what'd she do next?
What did the next day bring? Yes. Yes. So it's similar struggles, similar challenges, similar learnings that the universe provides for us, that our lives unfold in this beautiful way so that we really discover who we are and how to express our divinity through our humanity.
Yes. So I hope that everyone will go to Pamela's website, which is drpamelagerali.com, and I'll put that also in the comments so you can find her. And people are saying loving the vibe, loving the energy. Thank you. So I think what we want you to know is that there is so many ways for you to get support during this time as a conscious business owner or as a person in charge of a family group that's going through these changes. And this work that Pamela does is amazing. So I really hope you'll go to
her book comes out later this week.
Oh yeah, the book comes out later this week, and we're so excited about her work, and I'm going to be telling everybody. I am, because I really.
And thank you, Kathy. And I would like to thank all of my friends and my spiritual sisters and my soul sisters and my family. My husband is my greatest supporter, and a friend of mine drew illustrations for the book. So it came to be through the efforts and support with very many people. And for that, I am truly grateful.
Right. Well, it's got a divine purpose. So we're hoping that you all will get a chance to experience it and watch for Pamela's other interviews. You'll see, yeah, she's very entertaining, and it's a wonderful way to shift your consciousness to this higher level. Doesn't have to be hard. Doesn't have to be tough. Can be fun.
And to learn more about the blueprint, on my website, there is a place to sign up to get a free booklet called Blueprint for Conscious Compassionate Living. The chart, the matrix of the blueprint is in there, along with a lot of other information that is just relevant to the process.
Yes, yes. So hope you all will take advantage of her generosity, and we'll see you again soon. Thank you. Please go.
Thank you. Blessings.
You'll be very glad you did. Thank you.
Blessings.